The restaurant's low hum of conversation faded the moment he stepped inside. Cutlery paused midair, whispers shrank into silence, and even the manager straightened nervously. His presence carried weight, the kind built from reputation, not introduction. But tonight, he wasn't here for business. He walked slightly behind the small, silver-haired woman holding his arm, guiding her carefully to their table by the window. Rosa's eyes moved curiously around the room. She loved watching people, even if she couldn't hear them. Years ago, illness had stolen her hearing, and with it, much of the world's patience. Most places treated her like an afterthought, speaking to her grandson instead, nodding politely without truly trying. A young waitress approached with a gentle smile. She looked at Rosa first, not him. Rosa lifted her hands hesitantly, forming slow signs, prepared for the usual confusion. Instead, the waitress responded immediately. Fluid, confident, warm. Rosa froze. Then her face transformed. Her posture straightened, her hands moved faster, and her eyes sparkled with excitement. The two women began a conversation entirely their own. Rosa laughed, a bright, silent laugh that shook her shoulders. She told stories about her garden, about her grandson as a stubborn child. The waitress listened closely, nodding, asking questions with graceful movements. He sat back, unnoticed for once. And he didn't mind. For years, he had fought to control every room he entered. Yet watching someone give his grandmother the simple dignity of being understood felt more powerful than anything he commanded. When the check arrived, he left more than money behind. He left with something unexpected: gratitude. He returned a week later, but this time without the usual entourage and without his grandmother beside him. The hostess looked confused when he asked for a table for one. He didn't correct her assumptions. He simply sat and waited. When Sophia approached, there was a flicker of recognition in her eyes, and caution. She greeted him politely, but her hands stayed still this time. He noticed. "I came to thank you," he said quietly. She softened slightly and sat across from him during her break. Up close, he realized she looked younger than he first thought, tired, but determined. He asked how she had learned to sign so fluently. "My little brother," she explained. "He was born deaf." Her expression changed when she spoke about him. Proud. Protective. "Specialized schools are expensive. I work here mornings and another job at night." He listened carefully, asking questions he normally wouldn't bother asking anyone. She told him about fighting school boards for proper accommodations, about translating for her parents at doctor appointments, about how exhausting it was to be someone's bridge to the world. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer advice. He simply absorbed every word. 2 days later, Sophia received a call from her brother's school. The remaining tuition for the year had been paid in full, anonymously. That evening, when he returned with Rosa, Sophia's eyes met his with understanding. She signed. "You didn't have to," he responded slowly, carefully forming each sign he had practiced alone. Family helps family. And for the first time, she saw something in him that wasn't power, it was sincerity. Their lessons began the following week after closing time, when the restaurant lights dimmed and the last customer had gone home. Sophia would wipe down the final table, then sit across from him with patient focus, her hands poised between them like open pages waiting to be read. He was not used to struggling. In his world, instructions were given once. People adapted quickly, or they disappeared. But sign language required something entirely different. Precision. Expression. Vulnerability. A single misplaced movement could change meaning completely. His fingers felt stiff, clumsy. He frowned often. Once he muttered a curse under his breath when he mixed up two similar signs and accidentally called his grandmother a stubborn goat instead of strong woman. Sophia burst into laughter before she could stop herself. He stared at her, then, unexpectedly, he laughed too. It was unfamiliar, this lightness. Night after night he practiced. Alphabet drills. Facial expressions. the subtle tilt of the head that carried emotion words couldn't. He began studying between meetings, repeating signs under his desk like secret codes no one else understood. When he finally signed a full conversation to Rosa without looking at Sophia for help, the old woman's eyes filled with tears. She cupped his face gently, signing, "I have waited for this." Something shifted in him then. He found himself thinking before reacting, listening more than speaking, choosing silence where anger once ruled. Outside, the city still whispered his name with fear. But inside that small, quiet restaurant, he was simply a grandson learning how to be heard without making a sound. The trouble arrived on a Thursday night, loud and deliberate. 3 men pushed through the restaurant doors just before closing, their heavy boots echoing against the tile floor. Customers stiffened. One of the men knocked over a chair, another swept a stack of menus onto the ground. It wasn't random chaos, it was a message. Sophia stepped in front of a young busboy instinctively, her hands trembling but her voice steady as she told the men they needed to leave. They ignored her. "We're just reminding certain people," one of them said coldly. "That territory can change." They overturned 2 tables before walking out, leaving fear behind like broken glass. When word reached him, the city expected retaliation. They expected headlines, sirens, disappearances. Instead, he went silent. Behind closed doors, he made calls, calm, controlled, final. Agreements were enforced. Lines were redrawn. The rival group found their suppliers cut off, their accounts frozen, their allies unwilling to answer phones. No public violence. No spectacle. Just quiet precision. Within 48 hours, the message was reversed. The restaurant would not be touched again. When he came to see Sophia, she didn't thank him. She looked at him with something closer to conflict. "I don't want protection that hurts others," she signed firmly. He held her gaze and responded carefully, each movement deliberate. "No one was hurt." She studied his face, searching for deception, but found none. For the first time, she understood that he wasn't trying to prove power. He was trying to protect peace, the fragile, ordinary kind she had shown him how to value. Rosa's hands had always been steady, expressive, full of life. But that winter, they began to tremble more than usual. Her steps slowed. Her once bright eyes tired easily. The doctors spoke gently, cautiously, as if softer words could delay the truth. He sat beside her bed most evenings, the powerful man the city feared now quiet and attentive, watching every breath she took. Sophia visited often too, bringing small pastries Rosa loved and signing stories about the cafe to keep her spirits high. One night, as snow pressed softly against the window, Rosa reached for his hand. Her fingers moved slowly, weaker than before, but her message was clear. "I want to see you free." He frowned slightly, not understanding at first. She continued, pausing to gather strength. "Free from this life. Free from always looking over your shoulder." The words struck deeper than any threat ever had. He had built everything for survival, for control. He told himself it was to protect her, to ensure she never wanted for anything. But as he looked around the quiet hospital room, machines humming softly, he realized none of his power could bargain with time. Sophia stood nearby, silent but present. In the weeks that followed, he began making changes. Assets were transferred. Leadership was reassigned. Deals were closed without renewal. He stepped back carefully, strategically, the way one disarms a complicated machine. There was resistance. Questions. Doubt. But for the first time, his decisions weren't driven by fear or dominance. They were driven by love. And Rosa, watching him sign updates each evening, smiled with peaceful approval. Spring arrived gently, as if the city itself understood that something fragile was beginning again. The old restaurant no longer carried tension in its walls. Fresh paint brightened the space, sunlight poured through widened windows, and a new sign hung above the door, a community cafe offering free sign language classes every weekend. He funded it quietly, refusing to have his name displayed anywhere. The only thing that mattered was the purpose. Children filled the room on opening day, their laughter visible in bouncing shoulders and wide smiles. Parents sat beside them, learning the alphabet with careful concentration. Sophia moved through the tables confidently, guiding hands into proper shapes, correcting gently, encouraging constantly. He stood near the back at first, watching. No one froze when he entered anymore. No whispers followed him. Some recognized him, of course. Reputations don't disappear overnight. But the fear had faded into something else. Respect, perhaps? Curiosity. Sophia waved him forward to help a young boy struggling with a sign. He knelt down, large hands moving slowly, patiently. The boy's eyes lit up when he got it right. Across the room, a framed photo of Rosa rested on a small shelf near the counter. In it, she was smiling, hands mid-sign. He felt the familiar ache of missing her, but it was no longer sharp. It was steady. Grateful. Sophia stepped beside him as the class practiced together. He turned to her and signed clearly, confidently, without hesitation. "You helped me hear what matters." Her answering smile said everything. And in the quiet rhythm of moving hands and understanding hearts, he finally built the legacy Rosa had wished for, not power, but connection.